Great. Well, I thank everybody for coming, and I see we have a few new faces here. How many people are new for one of these talks for the first time? I know we got a couple. Well, today we're going to be taking a look at Expo 67, as the title mentioned, Through Home Movies. I picked up two large reels of. I have a lot of movies of Expo, but these particular ones I picked up about 10 years ago. And they start with a trip from Michigan off to Expo 67. And we're going to run about 10 minutes before we get to Expo 67. So if you need to run errands and you don't want to see Upper Canada Village or anything, you get 10 minutes to relax. Excuse me, but I scanned these this past week. My scanner has a little bit of a auto exposure issue that if the film is overexposed, it tends to follow along with that. I'm getting a new scanner, which I'll redo all these. So I did not do all the work in these of color correction or stabilization or anything, because I'm going to be going through and doing them again some point in time. Excuse me, but I think you'll find the footage fascinating. The fellow that did it was very good in capturing signage. So when we see something, we see a sign of what we're going to see or a sign of what we just saw, but it's really helpful to start putting names to things. One of the things I don't have names for are all the sculptures that you'll see across scattered across the Expo site. And I will also warn you in advance, I am terrible in mispronouncing French names, so I will undoubtedly get a number of those wrong, and the people watching from Canada are going to be horrified. I'll do my best not to mangle too many of them. But it's kind of a fascinating road trip. If you are fans of the Chevy Chase National Lampoon's Vacation movie, we get into some of that with the very beginning of it. So let me go over here, share screen. I will bring up the video player, optimize for video clip, and then I'll restart the video. There's two reels of it. So we're going to be getting the first reel here. Each of them run about 30 minutes, and then let's jump to the other one. So let's start going here. And we are getting ready to go off on our trip. Hang on one here a second, close that down. I'll try, there's probably a box up at the top of the screen I don't know how to make go away. That's the meeting controls. But we're getting all ready for the trip. Dad has a sense of humor, the guy that photographed this. So there's the family off, and they're going, and the kid and his animal are running behind. And luckily he gets to go. So we're going to cross over on the Blue Water Bridge. This goes between Port Huron and over near Sarnia in Canada. Bridge here, just for those that wonder about such things, was built in 1938. This original bridge, there's actually a second span there now because traffic has increased so much over the years between the two of them. But we're going off into over the bridge, looking down at the St. Lawrence River. And we are now coming to Canada, which looks very much like it does on the other side. And there's a neat sign here for Canada's centennial year. They had that stylized maple leaf. Oh, Sarnia right now, by the way, is a population of 72,000 people, so it's grown a bit. But we're going to go in and get a nice look at the ride going along Queens Highway 401. It's one of the major roads that goes along there. And he's, I guess, is happy he's been in the car, and hopefully he's happy that he's going to go see Expo. Oh, Don, I didn't think to do it on my end, and I'm busy here. If you could just mute everybody other than me, I'd appreciate it. Bellevue is now 51,000 people. If you want to go, the Sun Valley Motor Inn is still there, but it's now known as the Fairfield Inn and Suites by Marriott. You'll see later on in the movie, Dad has a bit of heartburn rather, and how much hotels and motels cost, but you can stay at the Fairfield for $93 a night. And I mentioned a little bit of a overexposure problem on certain pieces of it. This is the Thousand Islands area, one of my all-time top favorite vacation destinations. Carol and I have been there a couple times, absolutely love it. It's a wonderful area that goes between New York and Canada, and there probably are 1,000 islands out there. Some of them are very large, others are just big enough to stand on and probably get 1 foot wet while the other one's dry. But it's a great vacation destination if you get a chance to go up there. And well, that really did get overexposed. Now we're in Upper Canada Village. This is kind of a neat spot. I went to college about 60 miles due south of here. Upper Canada Village was built in 1958 when they started building the St. Lawrence Seaway. It was a massive, we're going to be seeing a bunch of the buildings here. The St. Lawrence River was dammed up in a massive construction project that ran between 1954 and 1958 and created a very large lake, which wiped out 10 different towns along the Canadian border. They're known as the Lost Villages. They took quite a few of the buildings that were in the Lost Villages and moved them up here to this historical site in Canada, which is known as Upper Canada Village. And the setting is the year 1866. So a lot of these buildings, like here you see a sawmill going in action. They were actually working buildings then that were moved over and still work today. If you've been to Colonial Williamsburg here in the United States, this is very much the same sort of thing. The people dress in period costumes. They operate the vintage machinery. They'll do hand-dipped candles, those shear sheep, the blacksmiths there pounding away. It's really a great spot. I don't think I've been there probably since 1972 or 73, but it is open now, even though you know, they have virus restrictions in place. But if you do get a chance to visit and you want to see what Canada was like in the 1800s, this is a super spot to spend. So families out there, we got a set of oxen. Feel sorry for these guys with their giant wooden yokes. And some gardens on the property. As I mentioned, the people that work there are all dressed in period costumes, and they act as if they are people actually living there, and they'll react to you like if you start talking about modern things that they get confused. So it's sort of way before Disney introduced that for the Star Wars land. Small canal and a gateway and a lock. Recreated fort. And the whole property is strewn with all sorts of farm implements, wagons, carts, that sort of thing. Little, and they do give rides around. Looks like they found themselves a nice, nice cat to play with. They do have lots of other animals there, though, as seen here. So they have everything you would see in a real farm: ducks, goats, chickens, all sorts of different things. And a little train ride that goes around the property. It's one of the C.P. Huntington design miniature trains. Now we're off to the Robert Saunders St. Lawrence Generating Station. I mentioned this was a huge project done for 4 years. Tremendous amount of earth moved. And it was a dam that goes between the US and Canada, the Robert Saunders Dam. Robert Moses, of course, being familiar to us that are fans of the 1964 New York World's Fair. And Saunders was the head of a company called Ontario Hydro at the time. Huge dam that goes across the river, which formed a lake which generates a tremendous amount of power for both the United States and Canada. The dam is kind of interesting is that it does not have a section where water goes over it. All the water goes through and underneath the dam to generate power. There's a second dam parallel, in series with it in a different set of waterway that has spillways that can take care of overflow operations if the the water level gets that high. What's interesting is the St. Lawrence does freeze and becomes closed to shipping for several months of the year because of ice buildup. But the water is able to be taken into the dam below the level of the ice pack, so it goes through there. The dam reaches from Messina, New York, which is the nearest border crossing to where I went to school, over to Cornwall, Canada. And it has 32 giant generators in there in the section between these two moving cranes that ride along it. 16, then you can see the caps here for these generators. What they can do is there's 16 for the US, 16 for Canada. They knew when they were building the dam that these generators over time would wear out. So they built that crane system. And here you see how it works. They can lower the thing down in, pull out a generator, take it offline, bring in a replacement, pop it in, and put it back into place. So it's a very, very important part of the power system for the New York State, not just upstate New York, the power sent all the way down. Now we're going to take a short visit to the Murphys. Mentioned in the beginning of this that we go see the Murphys. I thought Wayne would get a real kick out of this. They were doing, looks like bowling up there in Canada, but they got some vintage logos in that. So we're just going to see some real quick footage for about a minute or two of the Murphy family. Now I have no idea who the Murphys are. I need to go and try to see if I could find them one of these days, but Murphy not being an uncommon name. But we're just going to be visiting them before we head off on our way to Expo 67. You might have seen outside the Murphys' house the maple leaf flag. That was a new introduction. There was also that stylized logo for Canada's centennial, which we had seen on the border crossing. So with all these names, I might be able to track down the family. I just thought it was fun to see the vintage 60 hairdos and 60s kitchen and stuff like that. This guy must be a freeloader or something. They make fun of him. As I mentioned, I did not do any color correction on that on these. The trouble is you have, oh, this is, now we're off to Canada. This part here got very exposed, and it corrects itself in a second. Motel Laco, and you see the sign out there for Log Expo. Log Expo is a corporation that the Fair Corporation put together to rent out a hotel space, and it became a huge problem for it. A lot of these hotels were really cheaply built. This particular one, I've not been able to find any information on Hotel Laco on Google. It doesn't seem to exist anymore. But you'll see a picture coming up. I mean, the ambiance is really, really great. No closet door or anything. Log Expo caused problems because people would make a hotel reservation, get up there and find out a lot of times the hotels were really dumps. Or in some cases, the hotel just wasn't there. This was a whopping $14 a night and a $4 tax. So people would buy a hotel reservation, prepay for it, get up there and found out some scammer had set up a fake listing and there was no hotel. So the Expo 67 Corporation was required to take over the hotel booking business in order to try to salvage the stuff. So looks like they moved to a slightly nicer hotel here. We get some views of it, and then we're going to be heading over to see Expo itself. Yeah, $26 per day. Look, 25. You must have gotten a day off, $1 off there. I said, poor dad was having heartburn about the price of hotels. I think if you saw how much hotels cost in general today, he'd probably rethink that he was getting himself a pretty good bargain for this. Been a while since Canada had that sort of money. Today, of course, you don't have $1 bills or $2 bills. You got loonies and toonies. Great ambiance from the hotel. Lots of scenic things to see. But finally, we leave the hotel. Come on, Dad, time to get going. Expressway still being built. And we're going to get ready to take the train now, and we're going to go over to Expo. I remember the first time I took the train up there coming from New York City, I was absolutely astonished when the train pulled into the station without the usual squeal and noise of it, that these trains ran on rubber tires. And that was, to me, just absolutely an astonishing design improvement. So we're off on our way to Expo, and we're going to come out at the Expo stop, but we have some nice footage of folks out there on the train. Route map of the system. And here we are. We're going to get over, change trains, and then we're going to go off to the Expo line. And finally, we go upstairs. Again, we're changing trains here. Big gift shop in the middle of the subway. Some of the shop names will be familiar to those up in the Montreal area. Others, I'm sure, have been gone for a while. And here we go. We're finally at Expo. So thanks to all waiting for it. Expo ticket booths here. You can come in and we're going to see everything is pretty much bilingual throughout our visit. The United States Pavilion, the USSR Pavilion. Marching band going through the facility, the mini rail going overhead, one of the multiple mini rail systems. Flagpoles at the United Nations Pavilion. We're going to be taking a tour later on the mini rail, seeing the view from up there. A great way to see the fair. Going inside the USA Pavilion. And here's our view from the mini rail. The mini rail was really popular, and when it first opened, people were getting on it and staying on it so they could just go around and around for one price. They eventually had to change the fare system, so you had to get off at certain stations to make room for more people getting on. So it wasn't so much the money situation, it was just filled to capacity. I need to call Mr. Mark Clinton at that phone number and see if he's still in Santa Monica. So the electronic signboards were very, very new, very, very modern at that time, all generated by controls that came out of the central computer area at Expo. And we're going to see a number of those signs advertising different things as we go on. Canadian Pulp and Paper, the USSA and USSR Pavilion in one shot. Judaism, Thailand, Burma. Kaleidoscope, kind of interesting film presentation inside. And as I said, the man was very good in catching the names of some of these with the signage. Thailand, of course, being familiar, having been moved from the 64 World's Fair up to Expo 67. There's the central part that had been moved, but it was greatly expanded. Mariachi Band at Mexico. Germany, Australia, just peeking in there just a little bit. More of Germany here. Giant tent structure held up suspended from the outside of the roof to give more space inside. We'll go visit Britain in a little while as soon as we get off. Trinidad, Tobago, and Grenada. Some of these self-explanatory. The Peepal Tree and the Katamavik. Op art sort of a style of the bandstand area there, France. Take a nice visit side in here, the Ontario Pavilion. He spent a lot of time in here. This is what I think makes the movies really nice compared to just all the still photos that I have, is you actually see things in operation. So they had these giant robots inside. You saw a little view of Nipper the dog there, but these robots based all different things, telling kids what they could aspire to grow up. You could be an athlete, you could be a politician, you could be a businessman. This one's kind of interesting. He's got a telephone built into part of his head. His eyes are telephone dials. You could be an astronaut, all sorts of different things going on. So I've got a bunch of pictures of these, but it's really nice to see them in motion. Now, this is my plan here. If you stare at this very intently and you listen to my voice, you will buy my books. You will buy my books. You will buy my books. Now, this reminds me of the beginning of the episodes of the Green Hornet TV series. If folks remember that, but it was an interesting exhibit of op art that was done, plastic cylinders that rotated around. Vintage vehicles and all sorts of wistful mechanical things. I'll head back outside in just a moment. Little playground out back, kids playing on a boat. There's a tree house they can go on, have great fun. The people tree mentioned in a prior talk was all images of people from across Canada. We were talking before this talk began about putting food down top of trash cans. Again, they really easy to build a snack bar, but there's not a lot of money in putting tables out, so you tended to eat where you had to. We're going to go up inside the Katimevac, the giant inverted pyramid. There were two ways up. You could walk up the staircase, and again, you can see some of these sculptures were actually kinetic and moving, or you could take the little funicular railway up. I'd love to get some of the soundtrack that played in the pavilion and overlay it on top of these videos. Very, very interesting artwork that was in there. Now we're going to get some nice views from the walkway that ran around the perimeter of it, of the fairgrounds itself. So another view of the mini rail. So this is what you'd see from being up there. It was a great spot to go up to and be able to see all throughout that area. There's a ship going by in the canal around not the canal, the waterway past the fairgrounds. You know, we're looking over at France. Israel. And again, it's very interesting to see interior shots of a lot of these. We're using outdoor film and it's being shot indoors, so I'm going to have to adjust the lights on it later. But interior film footage, movie footage, seems to be on the rarer side. Italy, very popular pavilion. Hostess inside. Cuba, he shouldn't have been there. Cuba was supposed to be a non-goer for U.S. citizens. They were trying to have us make a point of not going there to show us, the Cubans, how little we thought of them. Of course, we all went. The Great Britain Pavilion had a large section inside on mod clothing designs. So the days of Carnaby Street, the Beatles are hitting town. Everything's becoming very swinging 60s. We expect to see Austin Powers pop out there. Sculptures that were inside. Tired feet. We're going to see a bunch of tired feet during the movie. Nighttime view of the tower outside. Now we're off to Germany. And kind of a fun little sculpture outside. The kid's enjoying himself. And inside, just a couple poles to help support the tent, but a tremendous amount of interior space, all sorts of things on the German industry and that. Over here in Australia, we're going to see some of the animals that were in Australia and also some of the artwork and that. There's also a giant coral reef reproduction. This again, a bit overexposed, but we have a bunch of kangaroos hopping around outside. Sometimes the movies, unfortunately, are not properly focused, but again, looking back, he did a pretty good job overall. Boxing kangaroos. Here's the coral reef. Kind of a shame to think of taking real corals, chopping them up, and just putting them here for the sake of being seen. Just almost next door was India. I have no idea if she was somebody famous, but Dad seemed to think so. A little bit of DuPont over there, this rotating column there. Well, a lot of footage here for people who want to see the USSR. We're going to see a whole bunch of what was inside of the USSR Pavilion. Sermons from Science right there. So the family looked like they stayed 3-4 nights at Expo because we get a combination of day, night cycles going through it. The lighting fixtures, which so many of us were absolutely in awe of at Expo, shine light up from a pillar down below and bounce it off a disc up above. You had some of the lighting like this, but most of it was very indirect, soft lighting. Did not have a lot of giant street lights lighting the streets. It was a very subdued sort of lighting experience. You can see some of the luminaires there, but a very, very nice design. A few of those have survived. Most of them were scrapped over the years as they basically wore out. They didn't replace the electrical wiring. Hammer and sickle for the USSR. Some of the sculptures had names, some did not. I believe that one was one of the ones that did not. Just eye candy for those of us who love the street lights. USA at night. It's New York State in the background there. So the ship passing by the area. Oh, actually, this wasn't passing by. This is docked over at Habitat. This is another day going in. You could come in through the main gate. Sorry for the overexposure in this sequence. But there were a number of ships on display over there. So that Israeli ship was there. We're also going to see some German destroyers. Some of the other buildings there that did industrial displays in the front. The Expo Express train running out there mentioned German destroyers. Throughout the Expo season, different navies would bring their ships in. So you had often you had ships from the Royal Canadian Navy, but the Royal Navy was there, the United States Navy was there, the Japanese Navy was there. Here we see the Germans. And a lot of these were open for public tours, so you could come on board for free, take a tour of the ship, and come back. And then the ship's crews would participate in various things, marches, or if they had a band, different concerts on the Expo grounds. Those of us who are into photography will enjoy this one. People were invited to enter photos from all across Canada or other parts of the world, but mostly Canada, to be on display here. And he's caught some of the displays going on there. And one of the big signs, this fountain is still on the site in a very decrepit condition. Hopefully someday it can be restored. Labyrinth, a giant film presentation, super popular. The family liked eating, so they came in here to get a snack bar. I can still remember the first time I went and tried to order my hamburger with cheese in French, and absolutely horrified the poor person at the counter, but I was eventually able to get my avec fromage. He got it wrong. It's not habitant, it's habitat. And when I rescan this, I hope to fix the overexposure in this section of the reel. Inside, looking up at the giant wood ceiling there, we're going to see some of the water features down below, I believe. Over at Laurent, we're hopping around because we took the ride over there. We're at the Aquarium of Montreal. Building is still there, not in use today as an aquarium. I think it's just used for storage today. Fish inside the aquarium. Anemones and clownfish. And more of Laurent. Most people are probably familiar with it by now, but Laurent is the entertainment area. And the log flume ride, very popular, just closed recently after a multi-decade run up there. But we're going to see a lot of footage of Laurent and the log flume ride, including some nuns that are getting out to go on it. And hopefully they kept their habits intact as they went through it. Ship across the lagoon, more signage. But here's, we're going to get in it. There's the nun. She's all set. She's going to try to keep herself dry. And off she goes. Skyway, this Gyrotron. We're going to be boarding Gyrotron and going into it, but we don't get a view inside, unfortunately. Some of the many booths of games of chance, food, different things, and some of the rides. We've seen a lot of those in action coming up. Calypso ride, Ferris wheel. Arena. Again, I apologize for the exposure problem on certain parts of the footage. Now here's the Gyrotron, the ride going into and out of the building. People boarding it, getting on your car ride to go in. A view of Laurent as you're riding into Gyrotron. And unfortunately, he did not get footage inside of the monster attacking us. Antique car ride, always popular, even at theme parks and things today. So Junior here whips off and he's having a great time. Old 99, the train, we'll see more of that going by in the background in a moment. Big playground that they had there for kids to go off and burn off some energy. An old 99 train ride going around. A raft ride. A little calmer than the ones you might get today at, say, Disney's California Adventure. Cartoon or costumed character wandering around there. We'll see him a little closer up. Bye, we'll see you soon. So you went around, you didn't get real wet like you do on the raft rides that are so popular today, where they take you and absolutely soak you on majority of these things. Again, interesting playground here, giant slide shaped like a snake. He came popping out its mouth. Dad seemed to like to take pictures of young ladies and put little snippets of it there in the movie. I wonder how Mom liked it when she got back home and saw some of it. Here's our little monster friend. He seems to be a pretty friendly little monster. One of the clowns with him. They had clowns that appeared throughout the expo grounds for street entertainment and gave it some extra fun. And I think Junior's going to sleep real well tonight. Little roller coaster. More footage of ladies walking around. I don't know what the exchange rate is today. Maybe we can get that during the discussion part. The spiral, you would go up in that cabin, it would rotate and give you 360-degree views of the La Ronde area. Rise up to the top, rotate, and come back down. Again, that signage was cutting edge in 1967. Funhouse ride, very similar to the Voyage to Mars one that we have seen at Expo, the 1962 Seattle World's Fair. Very confusing footage from the Ferris wheel. Mentioned this ride, Calypso became popular. It was introduced in '62 at the Seattle World's Fair. It was actually invented, I believe, in Europe and brought over here. But this might have been the first one of them in Canada. And it's quite a ride. It's not the sort of ride I would enjoy because I do not getting spun in high-speed circles. So a bad trip on the teacups at Disneyland is enough for me. Okay, Dad, let's get some more footage that will get you in trouble at home. The Octopus Ride, another thing that spins you around circles, goes up and down. But just some general nice night views of La Ronde. They finished their day out there. When we're done with this section, we're going to be going over to the main part of the grounds again. If you look at this, it would look like the major thing at La Ronde to do is getting spun in circles. We're going to end the night there. As you can see, a spiral going up, those white lights going up the column up there as it slowly rotates around. And some fireworks to finish off the night. And that's the end of reel 1. So we will now go over here to reel 2. I just have to bring it back up and we will see some more of the main grounds. And we start with Dad making a comment, editorial comment here. How do I get this closed here? The information system at Expo 67, they went way out of the way to computerize it. At the 64 World's Fair, all the information booths had a giant set of loose leaf binders, had information in them that the host or hostesses could flip to and go through it. Those books are very well sought after today for information. For Expo 67, they decided this was going to be jet age, modern space age. We're going to computerize it. Unfortunately, it didn't work as well as they anticipated, so it did generate some long lines of people waiting there. So another snack, get your coffee, fortify yourself for the day. So the system was very advanced, but it wasn't advanced enough to take care of the number of people that were waiting to get information. And of course, language being bilingual also made it slow down. So we're going to go visit some of the international pavilions now. We're going to start with Ethiopia. Thankfully, the exposure issue settles down. We're going to go inside. See the lions that were a gift from the head of Ethiopia. I don't remember if he's a king. I believe so. We're going to go over to Morocco, get some nice views of Moroccan workmen inside. I look forward to when I can restore these and color correct for the tungsten lighting inside. Some of the hostesses outside. I love the hostess costumes at Expo 67. They were really very, very stylish. Some of the ladies will complain the fabrics may not have been so great for breathing, particularly the USA Pavilion. They talked about how hot they could get, but very, very stylish in terms of design all across the Expo grounds. So this pavilion was closed when they were visiting because of the war with Israel going on. They had closed in protest. That was the only one, I believe, that closed during the run of Expo 67. And inside, same pictures and exhibits that were used in 1964 had been moved up to Canada, but things like this Royal Barge, all new edition that were added on. Again, tremendous amount of gold leaf, and just like in New York, they used actual gold leaf and not just gold paint. Austria, great little piece of sculpture here. We see it again coming up with the flame burning up on the top of it. It's amazing that it was that easy to get to, because it would seem it'd be very easy to climb, and to have that flame up on the top of it, I guess you might want to go up and have fun with that. Telephone Pavilion, where they showed the Disney 360-degree film of Canada. I ran with their stylized Persian carpets outside, done in tile work. Another piece of sculpture driven around, rotated by the water power coming down. Weaving a rug. Multimedia display, back then all done with slide projectors. Switzerland, time for a meal. Oops, the camera's on. This I get a kick of. 1967 Up. Well, 7 Up had the strollers here, had the logos put on them. A few of them have survived. The playground here was kind of interesting. You could drop your kid off and let them have fun playing on the various things there. Come back for them. And the kids were well entertained with all sorts of things to do, and it's kind of an interesting thing. They could do artwork, painting, and that, and meet kids from around the world whose parents had also parked in there. So it was kind of a fun international melting pot for the young. And you didn't have to leave your kid there. You could just go up and look inside as well. Now we're going for a real quick dinner, out to supper with the Murphys, the host that they're staying with. Everybody gets real stylishly dressed. So we'll see the Murphys just for a moment or two. And you better not be filming this. Oh God, he is again. He never stops. Okay, can we go eat dinner and get done with this? He doesn't get to go to dinner. He gets to play with the kids. Very overexposed menu. And we're back at Expo. So we had a chance to go off and have a nice dinner out there. We're going to go to China. Now, China is being rebuilt here. They had a major fire that broke out in the kitchen area of the China Pavilion and did a tremendous amount of damage. So I want to date the picture. We could do it with that. Over here, we're back at State of New York, had kind of an op art display outside. Things inside, mostly about tourism in New York, not a lot about New York industry. Now we're going to be doing a deep dive inside the USSR. Very, very popular pavilion. People wanting to see what was, the whole big thing, this giant building. And inside we're going to see was very industrial type of displays inside, spacecraft. This giant stylized map is major manufacturing facilities across the USSR. Lenin looking less than benevolent up there. They always use very stern looking things of him on all their pavilions. I'm sure there must be something of him smiling someplace. But again, those are all industrial facilities. Stained glass windows, they had a very nice one. I don't think it's captured in this movie, of the Montreal subway system done in stained glass. They had exhibits of making all sorts of Russian artwork. Here he's doing a little wooden horse. They also had people doing Ukrainian eggs, nesting dolls, a variety of things that were done in there, paintings and sculptures on display. And some finished exhibits. Again, most of this was done. Oh, there's one of the hydrofoils. real loud, real noisy, but a real great way to get around. So lots of exhibits here of spacecraft inside the USSR. That domed disc shape off to the right was a theater you could go into, and I think it was called the Cosmos or Cosmos Theater. Had a movie inside. So spaceship after spaceship after spaceship. Signage down below, as you might imagine, explaining what they were. Solar panels. One of the early Sputniks. So you have their Vostoks, their Sputniks, a whole variety of satellites. Russian cosmonaut on a couch. One of these capsules with a dummy inside of it, showing re-entry burn. This is going to be mirrored over in the USA Pavilion when we get there and look at the Mercury. I was thinking, sorry, Gemini and Apollo capsules over there. Here's another one for you, Wayne. It's kind of interesting, the little bits and things that people popped up. Now I believe we're over at Czechoslovakia for the, oh no, we're still in the USSR, only 6:05. They also went for a meal at the Czechoslovakia Pavilion. Looks like they even had cheesecake. Underwater robot. About how they could take fish and grow them in hydroponic conditions for fish farms. You could go and get Tourism Bureau if you wanted to get information here to come over to spend your next vacation over in the USSR. You could watch the mini rail go by. Pictogram for men's room and ladies' room, something new. People hadn't seen these before, introduced in 67. So they did still say men and women down below, but they were very, very unique sort of signs that were introduced all over the place. Calder's giant statue. Carol and I actually went to a museum recently, and I said, oh, there's something by Calder. She knows I know nothing about art, so she was amazed that I recognized his piece, and it was because of Expo. And you could go for a ride in a gondola. Again, we're back at the the United Nations Pavilion here. And a whale skeleton reconstructed out there, and a boat that was being built. All throughout Expo, you could watch this take shape, and they were racing to actually get it done, and they did get it done by the time Expo ended. This is a giant block of asbestos, which back in 1967, people didn't realize the cancer-causing qualities. So let's put a fountain in the middle of Expo and pump water through it so everybody can sit around it. Another one of the hostesses. Lots of people resting their feet. As everybody that's been there knows, huge facility. Walking the islands can be a very tiring thing on your feet, even harder when you're standing on line for an hour or 2 hours to get into it. Mini rail, totally automated, taking a trip around. Engineers Circle or Plaza, Yugoslavia. Britain, again, sorry for the overexposure. Take the free Expo Express. We're going to go inside the USA, I believe. Looks like some VIPs were here this particular day, some limos outside, the US Marines that were guards for it. imagine that was a nice tour of duty. So we did have satellites inside the USA Pavilion, but we also went for a lot of other things, pop culture, lots of stuff on Hollywood. The long escalator ride, we'll get a better view of that. It's kind of interesting, though, to see some of the pictures that they did use for pop culture, because things like Teddy Bear. Anyway, people that were big stars in the 20s and 30s were probably forgotten by most people by the 60s. Indian headdresses. Raggedy Ann and Andy, all sorts of other American folk art dolls that were brought over from different museums. Smithsonian loaned quite a few pieces. Little girl doll there on the right, not happy. Some cartoons, American cartoonists, and they had different displays. There was a section of rock guitars. Oh, here's one of the early Apollo capsules used in testing. Parachutes used to recover them. Gemini capsule. Heat shield. Mock-up of the lunar lander. Again, 1967, we had not yet landed on the moon. Tremendous interest, though, that this was coming. Some of these surveying instruments which had previously landed on the moon to take soil samples and geological surveys were shown there. Others like this had a giant camera in them. Dr. Carpenter could tell us more, I'm sure, about some of the imaging probes that they sent up to photograph the moon, so they could help pick a safe landing site for the astronauts. Packaged foods and other items, self-drying towels, space helmets, things that would be used in the spacecraft, a jet maneuvering unit for propulsion outside the craft. Line waiting to get in. Very, very popular pavilion. Reproduction of an early airplane. All sorts of movie stars. You can see some recognizable and others that went way back in time. There's Judy Garland there. See Betty Davis. Fred Astaire doing his dancing routine. They had monitors that ran around. These were all on film loops back at the time. King Kong or a gorilla. There's one for you, Joey. North by Northwest, Cary Grant. Oh, we're back outside. Not quite sure what piece of artwork that was. I think we may have ducked inside France. I'd have to see. Brewers Pavilion. Many, many different beers, very popular with the adults, and they did have soft drinks for the kids. Japan had the cars outside. They were asked to take them down and make it less industrial looking outside. So again, you can start dating some of the movies by things like when the cars were taken in or taken out of the display. And you could go inside and tour a Japanese house. Now this is kind of fun. This is picture phone, but the Sony version. This is not the AT&T version of it. So you did have the AT&T picture phone over in the telephone pavilion, but Sony was here telling you how they were also working on it. And soon everybody would have a Sony picture phone in their house. And I don't think I've found any other footage of the Sony picture phone in operation. Over to Habitat, more of the pavilions and everything on that section when you come in. More pretty gals for Dad to explain. Somebody must have had a bad day. Ambulance taking somebody away. Very few actually serious injuries or accidents just during the entire time of Expo. Had a very good safety record. You know, as you can imagine, anytime you bring this number of people together, you're going to have heart attacks, you're going to have some slip and falls, that sort of thing. But I don't recall of anybody being seriously hurt on any of the attractions or exhibits or anything. It was just the normal stuff you have with that many people gathered together. Czechoslovakia, super popular restaurant at Czechoslovakia. Matter of fact, the whole Czechoslovakia pavilion was very popular. The art exhibits inside, lots of exhibits of glasswork and things that they were famous for. A giant fairyland castle carved out of wood, and that it was a real loss when they left Canada after 1967 and did not return for the Mana's World Years 68 and later on. It was really a shame. It was a beautiful pavilion. Some general crowd scenes, folks online. You got lots of folks online, lots of folks on line after line after line, anywhere you want an Expo, because Expo was very popular. Lots of people came, stayed. Like I said, these are all waiting to go see Czechoslovakia because word got out pretty soon. What were the hot spots? What were the duds? And people would go in line right up. We were talking before we began the presentation about fast passes, things like that. If you were a VIP, there were ways to get around these things, but there was, oh, this is kind of interesting. You see one of the sculptures, kinetic sculptures in work. And we're at Polymer, one of the sillier looking pavilions, kind of interesting open air piece out there. But lots of motion, the little air driven pieces up above, spinning around. And all sorts of things down below. All the things you can make with polymers, wonderful things to do with plastics and petroleum and all the chemical derivatives. Air Canada had a great thing about the invention of flight going back to the days of Michelangelo with his hope for flight. Tilden pedicabs you could rent, or again, we mentioned 7-Up earlier. And there was an exhibit there for Expo 70 promotion coming up that don't forget us, we're the next coming World's Fair. And we're going to say goodbye to the Murphys and end our trip in just a moment. Looks like they're getting a travel trailer ready to go off on an adventure. But we had a good time. Everybody's still speaking to each other, enjoyed the trip. He probably doesn't remember any of his days at Expo 67, but who needs a thrill ride when Dad can pretend he's going to drop you? And that is it. We will, there's the leader going out and we'll stop sharing. So see how many mistakes I made or comments or observations folks have. So yeah, thanks, Joey. You needed, I thought you'd enjoy the gorilla bit. So let me just go through these here and see if I see anything particularly. Hello, 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 hello. Everybody's saying hello there. Vintage, boy's stuffed animals, vintage Huckleberry Hound. Yep. Photographic salute to all nations, but mostly Canada. Gee, I think we see a tribute there to the Muppets, Beth. Okay. Yeah, I don't see many DCA riders in dresses and heels. People did dress differently back then. That's very, very different for sure. Okay, just going through. Okay, comments, anybody would like to add their memories for those who were there, or questions or anything? Folks, throw up your, okay, Carolyn's got her hand raised, so come on over and Come on
So
down.
how much of that is still there?
It's not a lot is still there today. Well, LeBron still has a bunch of things. Some of the things like the Flume Ride just closed, I think, a year or 2 years ago. I think the Spiral, I haven't been there for 3 years now, and I think a bunch of it's changed. So maybe, Jean, are you able to tell us what's still at LeBron these days? No? Okay. A number of the pavilions did stay for the Man in His World years. So all the Soviet bloc nations picked up their suitcases and they left town. So Czechoslovakia, USSR, Cuba, all those left. But most of the other pavilions did stay past 67. So if you go onto my site, I do have a chart of what stayed when, excuse me, through the Man in His World years. Right with you. If you go out there today, the France Pavilion is still there, but it's the Casino of Montreal. Carol and I went there about 3 years ago. Successfully made it in and out without losing our shirt. That's still out there. Some of the other pavilions, I'd have to go back and remember. Jamaica, some of these are used as rental halls where you can have weddings, things like that. So most of it stayed out there for about 15, 16 years, something like that. A large part of it got torn down when they expanded for the Olympics to go and put a giant rowing basin, that sort of thing out there. But Expo 67 is really unique that it had the longest run for any of these pavilions of any World's Fair, and none is ever going to come close to it. Unless you say, well, New York's got the 1939 pavilion from that World's Fair. Well, that's one that's lasted all those years. It was, I've mentioned before, I went to Canada just about 35 miles from the Canadian, I went to college rather, about 35 miles from the Canadian border. And we would make a point of going up to Montreal. We would get introduced to the fine art of curling, other stuff up there, but we would go up and visit Man in His World. And I always got a really big kick out of going and seeing, because one year this would be the USA Pavilion, next year the USA would be over here and something else would be over there. So I do chart through each of those progressions on the site. Richard Herring's made an interesting observation there about a movie called Quintet. They had filmed that out there. They used the remnants of the, I think it was the French Pavilion out there, and it was what happens with global freezing. So there was no global warming, but now the whole planet's become frozen over, and they filmed a lot of it out there on the site. And I'm going to, I've got still frames I got to add to my site about that. They also filmed the pilot episode of the It Takes a Thief movie with Robert Wagner was done. He and Senta Berg would go up to Canada, and you can see lots of footage there. They filmed a episode of Battlestar Galactica on the old Expo 67 site, where they're supposedly at a deserted planet which has killed themselves all off through chemical poisoning, and they go through the fairgrounds. So it's kind of interesting. So yeah, a lot of it there for a long period of time. And when you go out there today, they filled in a bunch of the canals, but you can still see others. You can see, oh, okay, here's the Quebec Pavilion. It's it's got a different facade on it. But if you do get a chance to go out there, they are now just launching a major renovation of Canada Place, which was a giant amphitheater, and some other odds and ends. But it's just wonderful to walk through the grounds. It's very nostalgic, and even if you haven't been at Expo, what's really nice is there was signage out there. So when you do come up in a building, they will tell you this was the former Korean pavilion, this was the so and such, and you're not left to figure out what is this giant boarded up wood building here. Who else would like to say anything? Excuse me. So Wayne, did you enjoy the vintage TV footage?
Yeah, thanks, I did. And I had never seen the Sony picture phone before. But as a TV engineer, I noticed the shutter bars were running at 90 degrees. So they had taken a standard TV scan and rotated it 90 degrees.
Yeah, it looks like they did that so they could get a portrait orientation on the
Right.
tube rather than horizontal. So yeah, I got a kick out of that. I've been trying to look into more about Sony picture phones, and I ran out of time, but that's the only place I found that they were actually on display. So they probably found out that with Bell Systems system not selling, no sense continuing to pour money down that R&D rat hole anymore either.
I also have a comment about that historic village. One of the similar places that I went to, did a similar thing where you don't hand your camera to anyone because they'll just look at it and drop it. But I went to take a picture of a well decked out horse, and the man who was standing there holding the reins said to the horse, "Stand still now, the man wants to make your likeness."
Not take your picture, make your likeness.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if any, like I said, I haven't been to Upper Canada probably since 72 or 73. They were doing it then. I hope they still do it now, but it was really fascinating to go through and try to talk to people and, realize they're not going to break character. If you, say, oh, what's it pay to work here? Work here. I live here. What are you talking about? So it was kind of fun that they would immerse you very heavily into the experience. And I enjoyed it. Like I said, I went to school probably 60 miles due south. Unfortunately, the St. Lawrence River was kind of in between us, but we'd go over to Messina, take the crossing, and you were usually going over there to get more Molson's beer because the Molson's beer in Canada was better than the US. And sometimes we would head over it that way and go play tourist. It's a fascinating spot, and I hope to get back up there when it's safe to go and do these things again. Like I said, we haven't been able to get Carol there, and I think she'd enjoy seeing it for the historical nature. And it's kind of fun watching them do make candles and all that sort of stuff the way they were done then. Oh, Richard Herring, yeah, Molson Lobato, Keith beers. We would drive from our college over there, and you could bring back a case of beer duty free. So we would, walk into the cafeteria, see somebody having, lunch, and say, "You doing anything this afternoon?" "No." "Why?" "How would you like to go to Canada for a free 6-pack of beer?" So we'd run over, buy a case, put it on their lap, and their payment for taking the ride over was they got to keep 1 6-pack, and then we got to keep the rest. So, but it was really funny because you get over to customs. "How long do you expect to be in Canada?" "It depends how long the line is at the ABC store." And I guess, "All right, I'll see you in an hour." You turn around, come back again. So, but occasionally we would go play tourists. So I guess I love Montreal. Carol and I have been there a couple times and really enjoy it. And we would go up and, as I mentioned earlier, learned curling, had great fun doing stuff that was not real popular down in Brooklyn where I grew up. So curling was a new one for me. Anyone else? Like I said, I enjoy the movie because the static pictures are great, but to see some of the things in motion, like the one thing, and I don't have the name of it, but the 4 panels outside the Ontario Pavilion that the kid is just flipping and it's just going around it and rotating and that sort of thing. You don't see, the movement and, just the little things like the kids having fun, spinning the things around, watching that sort of stuff go. Baron, you had something?
Well, yeah, I was just gonna append that by saying, not really everybody wants to watch everybody else's home movies unless you yourself happen to be in them. But within the context of these meetings here, it's exciting to watch because I found myself not only just being immersed in the movie, but also looking for details, in each scene. Do I recognize this? Do I recognize that? As part of the World's Fair, but also looking at, well, okay, it's how long ago was this? 45, 50, 60 years ago, and looking at things that, you haven't seen in a long time that's not in still, but in motion. So Yeah, it's kind of interesting, rather than just looking at stills. When 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I guess, however long it was, when they were just starting to say, you still had camcorders and things like that, and you'd watch your camcorder movies on your TV. Okay, fine, interesting. But at the point in time where technology transferred over to where the little selfie cameras started to come out and you could take videos with your digital camera, and then YouTube developed and all the other platforms developed for you to put movies up. I thought, who the heck wants to spend 2 minutes watching, a movie? A photograph is a lot quicker. Post a photograph, there it is. It's easy to see. Who wants to spend 2 minutes watching somebody's moving? And I'm surprised how wrong I was with regard to the fact that, with the technology, everybody's doing movies and videos, and that's what you want to watch because of the depth of what's there rather than what you don't get in a still photograph. So yeah, this was an interesting presentation, Bill. You're on
No, you're
mute.
muted.
Thanks, yeah, for the dog. This is, again, we talked about when I did the presentation about movies, the little 3-inch reel that everybody used back then. And, you would film, basically you got a minute and a half, and then you have to take the film out, flip it over, put it back in, and go a minute and a half again. And then this guy that did these movies took all these little 50-foot reels and he spliced them together into 5-inch reels so that they ran quite a bit longer. But today you can just film anything, go on and on and on. If you don't like it, erase it. Back then, to decide that you had to go and grab some of this stuff. So the fact that he, to me, got all the little kinetic sculptures and things and took that as part of his 3 minutes per reel, he had to have carried a lot of these little reels up there to Canada because I've got some like 1,400 feet, and these are 50 feet. Do the math. He was shooting a lot of film, and it's to me great. This by the way, for people that have nothing else to do, this is a whole bag of movies of the '64 World's Fair. And for some reason, somebody took a trip to Florida in 1964. And I haven't watched them yet, but I know what I'll be doing soon. So, and John, you had your hand up, sir?
Hi.
Yeah, hi.
It's been a while. I haven't been on your channel. I enjoy it very much. The World's Fair in New York, but Canada, I was there. I was 16 years old at the time, and I remember we took a trip. My mom, my brother, and I just got my ham radio license, so I packed my gear, and my cousins lived in Montreal, and we used to have almost summer trips there. Drive from New York to Montreal and stay for a week or so and come back. But we took a Greyhound, just my mom and my brother and I, went to the fair, and good memories watching people's home movies. Even with all the flickering and the blurriness, it's great. Lots of memories. So I set up my radio up in Montreal. There was a small agreement that I got with my radio in Canada. So it was good. The local hams came by to visit, introduce themselves and so forth. It was fun for a 16-year-old kid. I just, it was good times. Thank you.
That's pretty neat. Did you get many contacts when you were up there with your?
Oh, yes. I set up a antenna off my cousins. They had a house and where we stayed in, and set up the antenna off a kind of like a porch and a balcony. And it's just the making contacts. Little things like that was fun.
Were you operating HF or VHF?
Yes,
HF?
I bought your ham maybe.
Yeah.
I had a Swan 350 back then.
Oh, all right.
Swan 350, and I picked up a vertical antenna.
Okay.
It was just convenient, small package.
Doing
I
a
think
little
a high
20 meters
gain.
during the day?
I was 15 meters mostly, 15
Okay.
meters. Yeah, but vertical antennas and HF is usually horizontal.
Yeah.
So, but regardless, I still make contacts.
Do you know if they had a ham operation at Canada at Expo '67 like they did at the the 64 World's Fair in New
Yeah, I
York?
know. New York, they had the Coca-Cola Pavilion in New York, but I'm not sure about Canada. I forgot. I have my own station. But no, it was no, I don't remember. Do you remember the other fella?
No, I was too young.
Oh.
I never made it to Expo, and in 64, 65, I was 8. So wasn't ticketed yet then.
Okay.
These kids.
Apparently, I just did a quick Google search, and yeah, there were a couple of pavilions with ham stations there.
Oh,
So,
at that Expo?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would
yeah.
presume there would have been, yeah.
Yeah. That was high technology then, high tech.
Well, Don, if you're good on Expo 67, try to look up the Hotel Laco, L-A-C-O in Laval, because that was the hotel the guy stayed at that he complained it was $22 or whatever a night. And I checked and there's no mention of that hotel that I could find on Google. So if you can find it, good luck. I imagine it did not become a huge major success afterwards.
I don't find out a first search, but I'll sharpen up my Google food and see what I can find in the next few days. So,
Great.
go ahead.
No, go ahead, sir.
The one thing that always amazed me about this is I moved to Vermont in 1970. And in 1979, I made my first trip out to this place, but it was Mana's World and La Ronde. And it's remarkable how much of that fair survived even 12 years later. A lot of the original, I mean, the Gyrotron was still running, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah.
And you can ride it. A lot of the national exhibits were still there. Some were gone. Some have been repurposed. But I've never seen any World's Fair that had the legs that this thing had. I mean, it went forever. And
Yeah.
it was gorgeous.
It was wonderful. I mentioned, in a prior Expo talk, how I went to Expo 67. It was a great time. You go home, you forget it, right? And then living down in Long Island, there was not a lot of talk about come back to Montreal in 68, 69 or whatever, for tourism. Well, I went to college in 69, let's go up to Montreal, see what it's like. Driving into Montreal, and I look over and holy crap, the World's Fair is still there,
Yeah.
So it's like, thank goodness I was driving because the other guys didn't want to go, but I wanted to go. And I said, look, I'll drop you off, I'll pick you up, but I'm going over there and see that. And to find, it was like, I've had dreams of going back to New York and finding the 64 fair still sitting there. To drive into Montreal and look across that river and see, the UK pavilion was, I think, the first one I saw, which at that time had been repurposed as the Quebec Pavilion, I think, or Montreal Pavilion. But to look across and see that tower standing across the water, I'm surprised I didn't run off the road and into the river looking at it. It was astonishing.
I understand Habitat is still there, which was something that always captured my imagination back in those days. It looked so modern to have all those, apartments stacked on top of each other. But I understand they haven't torn it down yet.
No, as a matter of fact, maybe Harold can add something in a second. Habitat has become a very fashionable spot to live, and it commands incredible prices. So if you go on a real estate site and you look for an apartment, because they have, again, 1, 2, 3, bedroom, depending on how many cubes you got, Habitat can set you back a bunch of bucks. Harold?
Yes, I live in Toronto and do visit Montreal just about every year, just haven't for the last 2 years, understandably. But the last time I was in Montreal, they do give tours of Habitat 67 led by architects. And it's about an hour-and-a-half tour, and they take you through the interior of it. The unit which was housing the Commissioner General of the Fair, and now it's owned by Moshe Safdie, the architect, but he's donated it to the city. And you do go into that particular unit, 4 concrete blocks, and it has been restored back to how it was in 1967. And you just have to put on these felt overshoes on your shoes and to keep the floor finish nice and clean. And they do mention that that also helps polish the floors as well, having these visitors go through. So that's something to consider. If you are going to visit Montreal, by all means, for decades, I wanted to see what Habitat was like. And now since 2017, they've given those tours generally about April till October. And it's about $30 or so. You just book in advance for them, but a really fascinating tour. And it is a very fashionable site to live at. Some of the units going for about $1 million.
Wow.
Well, that's great to know. I didn't realize they were doing those tours. So yet one more reason to go back.
It was on my bucket list for years, and finally they started up these tours, and I was finally able to go on one.
Yeah, it's a fascinating area just to go through. I mean, it's astonishing how well it was built. The thing that I do remember though is talking to somebody that lived there, who when they first moved in, they weren't real happy because they had not well insulated the floors of the units. So the wind would go underneath. So you can imagine you have that wind going through and the cold coming up through the floor. So I think a lot of the units had the retrofitting of some better insulation put in them. But it's really great. I think Habitat was originally supposed to be about 3 times the size that it is
Yes.
now. And they just, like everything else, you run into budget, time crunch and everything. And he had actually designed, he was going to build a whole city of those in Brazil, and that fell through as well. But yeah, if you go and look, it's a fascinating construction project. I've had pictures, how they, just like the contemporary resort at Disney World, everything was prefab, moved, put it into place. It's a fascinating construction process. Did you get any pictures when you were there, Harold?
Oh, yes.
Oh, maybe in a future day you can show us what it looks like to go and visit on your bucket list today.
No, it's a fascinating tour to take. Very highly recommended.
Great. Yeah, somebody was commenting online that they were going through trying to get their unit back into as vintage shape as possible, and how hard it was to find the appliances that would fit within the confines of the the kitchen cabinet areas, that sort of stuff. And the refrigerators today and everything are very, very different. So they were trying to figure out, could they get the guts of a new refrigerator and put it inside the body of an old one, or what they could do. Yeah, Beth made a good suggestion. Check newspapers.com for the hotel. Thanks, Beth. I'll do that after. I have a subscription there, and we'll go see. And hopefully we won't find out that it was a scene of multiple mass murders or anything else. But
It was LACO, Bill?
LACO.
Okay, there's an area there in there called LACO, so that's probably where it got named. My wife's a former librarian. I'll stick her on it too.
Okay. Great. Well, again, I appreciate folks joining. Next week, we're going to be doing a different tour. We're going to have Jim Fanning, who's a fellow Disney historian, who's going to take us on a tour of Disneyland and other Disney properties through vintage Disney publications, including some vintage Disney magazines, to see what it was like when Donald Duck and his nephews took a ride on the Matterhorn in the comic books. That was, as a kid, I loved it. When those comic books came out, it was the only exposure I had to Disneyland, reading, the adventures of Donald and Uncle Scrooge and Mickey Mouse and Black Pete fighting battles on the Matterhorn. And he's going to be taking us through how some of that was done and some of the other vintage Disney publications. So I'll have the information on my site probably tomorrow. But Jim is he's a great guy. He and I have done a number of things together, and I think he gives a very interesting talk. Has an absolutely outstanding collection of stuff, and what I like is when he has a hole in his collection for his presentations, I help fill it in, and he does the same for me. So next week he's going to fill in the whole hour for me and take you back to vintage Disney publications and vintage tours of Disney properties. So, by the way, before I forget, everybody that's on the East Coast, I wish you well with the hurricane that's heading up towards New York and New England. I sent my brothers a note today and hope that they'll be okay. And I guess it's the first hurricane that may hit Long Island since the 1980s. Having been through them, I know what they're like. So again, I wish everybody in that part of the country well, and hope that next week everybody's still safe and sound and intact. Barry?
Bill?
Yeah, one more thing is Joey, are you still online?
Yeah, Joey's there.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, Joe, you wanted me to remind you about the light.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was just going to ask Bill if I could show this to you. This is the mold cast lamp that fell down, that was swinging. And it fell right into my arms. So this is,
That's the
if
one
you
you
wait-
posted, huh?
yeah, it was swinging back and forth for years and years. And every time I would look up at that section, you can see the scrape marks that it was leaving. And I would say to my wife, that's going to fall eventually. And I hope that, it comes straight down. And it did. It fell straight down, and it fell into mud because it had just snowed. So it was pretty intact when I got it.
Well, answer my questions that I asked yesterday. The lens looked broken. The glass.
Yeah, it was. I have about 4 or 5 others. One actually has the lens intact.
Okay.
And a couple of have the wires. The wires are all intact. But this one doesn't have any glass on it. When it came down, it shattered. I didn't see any.
That wasn't, then this one that came yesterday wasn't the picture you posted? The picture you posted yesterday had it looked like the glass had been shattered, and I didn't know if that was the glass.
Yeah.
If it was broken when it fell, or if it was already broken above.
No, it probably was broken or very, very loose when it was up there. And when it came down and I got it, I didn't see any glass in it.
Oh, okay.
This is basically how, if you can see it, it has still the wires and some of the insulation attached to it. And they were made in Newark, New Jersey. They're called mold cast lamps. And they would make a good space helmet, actually, if you could get your head in here.
Well, why don't we wait? Why don't everybody is in favor of Joey putting on his head, raise your hand.
Yes.
It won't fit. It won't fit. Don't think I haven't tried.
And then I was going to say, who's going to go over to Joey's house and get him back out of it?
Anyway,
Before I forget, also, a lot of our fellow 64 fans are up at the New York State Fair this week, and they're going after a Belgian waffle
Jealous.
made by the original waffle makers. Last weekend, my daughter was here, and she made me a Belgian waffle that was so good, I thought I was back at the World's Fair. So it was really good. I was going to have her do it today so I could do it, the sympathetic vibrations with the folks up at the fair, but she decided she'd rather go to Alaska. So, but I'll have to, Carol, do you know where the waffle mix is? Is it sitting on the shelf? Can you just go grab it and show it to people real quick?
I'll see if I can find it.
Okay, great. Yeah, it was really, you have one of these waffles, and wow, it's 12 years old again. So it was, we've tried different ones, different places, but this was really a great one that she got.
Bill, one quick question. I had seen a photo of the sphere, a man in his world, on fire.
Yes.
Was that during Expo or afterwards?
That was after. They were doing some refurbishing on it, and thank God it wasn't during Expo. Be right with you, Carol. That's the waffle maker, or do you have the waffle?
Oh, you wanted the waffle mix?
The waffle mix, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know where that is.
Thanks. Yeah, they were doing refurbishment. The plastic skin caught on fire, and thank God it did not happen during the days of Expo, because all those people up on those platforms and escalators, it would have been absolutely catastrophic. So
Wow.
It's still there as a metal framework, but they've never put a plastic cover back over it. So, and I don't think they ever will because of the fire danger.
Yeah.
And that was 2006, back when it was Man of His World, I believe.
It was in 1976.
1976, yes, sorry. I had a six right.
About a month or two before the Olympics were held in Montreal.
Right.
And the whole acrylic skin just went up in less than half an hour.
Yeah.
And then the building was just abandoned for about 15 years. But then they put in about 15 years ago an environment museum. So they do still have the steel framework, but it is just uncovered. And they've got the various platforms still within the dome, and you can visit them. And 2017, they had a special exhibit for the 50th anniversary of Expo there. That exhibit is still in that Biosphere Museum, they call it. And some of the other city museums in Montreal did have special exhibits for the 50th anniversary.
Yeah, we went there with Elijah LaRoche and had a great day going back up and seeing the exhibits and everything. I do have a number of pictures of Biosphere in its ruined, burned out stage, and it's great to see it again. So Carol, can you just show us the waffle mix?
Can you see it all right?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's actually now in mirror writing, I guess.
No, we see
Oh, that's
it
all right.
fine. Yeah, we see it fine. So just read
Who's the company that makes it, Carol?
Good question. Let's see.
Well, I'm gonna get me some of that.
No, Margot subscribes to all of these things where they give her all sorts of different products, some of which are brand new. Okay, it says distributed. Let's see. Produced, I'm trying to read this in the dark. Let me turn the light on.
Sorry to bring everything.
You can see some of the boxes that Margot's got in the last 2 weeks sitting behind Carol. So
Yeah, so you might want to try Farina. I think it's FARINUP.US.
ARINUP.
UP.US. So it says it's produced by a company in Luxembourg, and then it's distributed by a company in San Antonio. So that would be near you. I can give you that information if you want.
Yeah, because I can drive over and I'll just raid the warehouse.
Okay. All right. So it says MK.
I tell you what, Carol, why don't we photograph it and I'll just send it
Yeah.
on.
Okay.
So we don't take up the whole thing, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
No
They're
problem.
really good, as Margot says. They have little sugar crystals in them that when you go into it, that it's really a great meal. And we just sat there with the strawberries and the whipped cream, and it was really good.
Wow.
That's
Just
what I-
found it.
Sugar, so I didn't make a real mess.
Yeah, no, that's what I was gonna say. How much difference does it taste compared to Aldi's pancake mix that you can make waffles with?
It tastes a hell of a lot better. I mean, I hardly ever eat waffles because most of them are just pancakes and they're I had a bite of this and boy, I was 12 years old again. It's really tasty. So
You said
I'll
something about sugar crystals in it?
yeah, it's got little sugary things in it that give a little zing as you go through it. It's really very nice, and it comes in the bag Carol has a mixture in it that then you still have to mix other stuff with, eggs and water and other odds and ends. Stick it in the waffle iron. But I'll have for next week's talk. I'll make sure I have some still pictures and throw them up there.
And Ken just posted the website, I guess, for the
That was me. Yeah.
fairenup.com.
Yeah, I'd like
I-
to see the ingredients list. So Bill, if you're taking a picture of it, take a picture of the ingredients list too, if you will.
Sure.
Mm.
Go out to the chat area of the down at the bottom. If you look at chat and click on that, you'll see all the chat comments off to the right, and there's a whole bunch of links there. So go grab them.
Hey,
But yeah, go grab a look at those, and then maybe someday we can all sit and eat waffles together.
There's a plan.
Yeah, I tell you,
but we're all out of whipped cream, Bill.
I know, we have some today. But no, I've been on a diet lately, and I went off the diet for the waffles, and it was really damn well worth it.
I see that Beth and Carolyn both posted a link to it on Amazon as well. So you've got
Great.
multiple ways of getting to it.
Yep. So like I said, I enjoyed it. It's definitely, you compare it to an IHOP waffle, there's no comparison. This was definitely the way to go. So, well, I appreciate folks joining. I hope everybody enjoyed it and enjoyed the trip to meet the Murphys and the rest of it. I could have jumped out the whole Upper Canada Village Park, gone straight to Expo, but I thought folks would enjoy seeing what people did on a typical vacation. And having been to Upper Canada Village, I enjoyed myself. So thanks for the self-indulgence of that and the power plant. And I hope you enjoyed your interactive trip to Expo 67. So
Yeah.
see you next week, and we'll see Mr. Fanning and doing his bit, and I think you're going to find it fascinating. He's a very, very good and articulate speaker. So thanks all, and we'll see you then.
Thank you, Bill. Stay
Thanks, bye.
safe.
Phil, good job.
Thank you.